everybody. Drew Brees, and we are in Metairie, Louisiana for another. I think LaDainian Tomlinson, we're booked for 5 hours today here.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, LT. With the Saints on a steamy day.
Oh, yeah.
We're not going to talk about the weather because weather is just an excuse. As somebody once said, we're comfortable, we're good.
It doesn't matter.
The heat index is not going to be 100.
Job done today.
The heat index is not going to be 100 at all. There aren't going to be bugs. It's not going to be pea soup. We're going to be good because you at home aren't. You don't care about it. You don't care.
You sound like you're trying to motivate yourself to get through this. Come on, Andrew. You can do this.
I mean, we could get one of those LT, like, you know, pregame huddles and, like, pumping us up thing if you want. We can get the helmet and the visor, and you can do that.
All right. I got you. If that's what you need, I got you, brother.
Dude, I do not need to be motivated. There are other things that I could be doing other than sitting at training camp with a Hall of Famer here next to the field with a team that could very well end up in Super Bowl 53. I am happy to be here. And we are happy actually to be with the Saints. A, they're a good team. B, this is amazing here. We're next to the field. They're going to be out here in about 30 minutes. Right now, they are doing their walkthrough inside to stay cool, to conserve energy. This is going to be their third day in pads here. Tomorrow's an off day, so they're going to be thumping a little bit here as well. And the team that is thumping is a team that has very, very high hopes this year. Walking around the city last night, people want to talk about this team going back to the Super Bowl because they were so close a year ago. We know what happened in Minnesota. They are trying to turn the page. Very much like yesterday we were in Atlanta. A year ago, they were trying to turn the page from what happened in Houston. This team is trying to do so as well. And the motivation from Sean Payton, it's an interesting motto. It's not prove everyone wrong, which is what you often hear in locker rooms. They say you're no good. It's prove everyone right, LT. Prove that you are as good as people say that you are.
And so they're embracing that role of being the favorites or one of the favorites to go to the Super Bowl. And I like that mindset. Why not embrace that you're supposed to be good, that you're supposed to go deep in the playoffs, and even possibly bring a second championship back to New Orleans? And listen, they have the veteran guys to do so. When you have a veteran quarterback in Drew Brees, this is his 30th year, I think.
Andrew? 38th, I believe. 38th.
But, you know,
George Landon.
He's a guy that's seen it all. And so it's okay for him to lead that charge and say, guys, we're supposed to be good. And we've seen in the past, Drew Brees is that type of guy to lead the guys. In pregame, he pumps everybody up. He gets the guys ready to go. What do you think he's doing in that building right now? Getting everyone ready to go. Exactly. So they're embracing that role of being the favorites.
You, a couple of days ago, were talking with Philip Rivers, at Chargers camp. We're going to talk to your quarterback, your other old quarterback, Drew Brees, here coming up a little bit later. Let's talk about Sean Payton and his environment here, not just the prove them right. He is also keeping an eye on some key position battles. He's looking for a punt returner, a kick returner here, as Mike Westhoff tries to deal with these new special teams rules. And he brought up the possibility of Alvin Kamara back there, especially with these new rules, being a full-time kick returner as well.
Does Alvin have a chance to do it on
Absolutely, but he's got to show it. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to play our best player, punt and kick return. It's a two-part series. It's kind of like The Bachelor right now. We got about 12 contestants, all with roses. We don't know who our returner is going to be. So, and if she doesn't like any of them, we'll bring in more.
Sean Payton said there could be trips to Paris, that if these 12 Bachelor contestants don't work, LT, that they're going to get 12 more. They're going to give them all roses until they finally get a winner. I don't watch The Bachelor, but I think I know what he's talking about.
I don't either.
You don't either?
No.
Well, I think we're like the only two dudes at the network that don't watch The Bachelor. And by the way, I am not in any way embarrassed at all to say that. Sorry, Kyle Brand. Like, Good Morning Football had more fun with that this morning. I just don't know where to go with The Bachelor. That's all. All right, let's talk some other flavor from around. Inside Training Camp Live, brought to you by Mitsubishi Motors. Drew Brees and the Saints are on the field. And you are looking live at Metairie, Louisiana, New Orleans Saints training camp. Yeah, break it down, Drew Brees. He's going to be on the set with us coming up a little bit later after practice with his former running back here, Hall of Famer LaDainian Tomlinson. I'm Andrew Siciliano. Let's just set the scene here. It's day 5 of camp, third straight day in pads. They're going to get a day off tomorrow. Right now, it's looking at 90. The heat index is going to push over 100. It is only 9:30 a.m. local time. It's good. It's football weather.
Great football weather, especially if you live in the South. You know, this is one way to get ready for the season, and that's what I always enjoyed growing up, you know, in the South and playing high school and college football here. It really does prepare you for the season because those first few days, Andrew, are tough, and it's really the mental endurance that you have to have, because physically you've been training all off season for this. But mentally, you start to question, like, do I really want to do this? It's freaking hot out here.
Do you ever really ask yourself that? Do I really want to do this?
Absolutely. In high school, oh my goodness. I mean, growing up in Central Texas, it got over 100, you know, quite a bit, Andrew. And so it was something that you had to deal with as a teenager. And so think about that as a teenager. You're questioning, did I pick the right sport? Maybe I might want to go play basketball.
I think you made the right call.
I think
it worked
so,
out
too.
for you. Yeah, thankfully you're not wearing your jacket out here. Then you'd really be fit sitting here. But let's talk about the Saints team. Back here in Menoree training camp for the second consecutive year. They were in West Virginia at the Greenbrier, where the Texans are now for a couple of years. But now they're back here in the heat. And as we see the quarterbacks in the distance and Drew Brees throwing there, consider this as he gets up there in age. Drew Brees had his fewest pass attempts per game last year as a Saint, LT.
Yeah.
But it was still 33 and a half.
Right.
Right? So this team is still going to throw the ball downfield. They want to run the ball, obviously, but this is still Sean Payton. Let's attack people. And that's how this team is going to win games.
And that's what Sean Payton knows, you know. And I credit them for kind of the switch in philosophies somewhat and running the football more. But at the end of the day, you know, Sean knows how to attack defenses. He knows when to attack defenses. And that's what he has always been so great at in his play calling. And I love it. I love that, you know, Drew Brees is now, you know, he is a little bit older and he's up in age. So why not take some of that pressure off of him and not allowing him to throw the football 40 or 50 times a game? Now you can use this young stud running back in Alvin Kamara and a young stud in Mark Ingram to kind of lead the way, but you can still take your shots as you see them. And that's what Sean Payton is going to do.
We got the tight ends and the wideouts on the field now. If you see number 82, that's our good friend, Mr. Benjamin Watson,
oh, yeah.
the former Raven and the former Saint. He's back home here with the Saints. There's an issue at running back here, at least the first month of the season. Certainly Alvin Kamara is here, and a lot of people expect him to get a bigger workload with Ingram suspended for the first 4 games. Don't be so certain, however. Kamara did not carry the ball more than 12 times in any game last year. Now, he had 80 receptions, all right, which is phenomenal, but he only carried the ball at a max of 12 times a game. So they got to find a running back. Shane Vereen is here. He's also very good catching the ball out of the backfield. 29 years old, the former Patriot, the former Giant, a veteran. They like a rookie, Boston Scott, but he really only had 1 bell cow year, his senior year. He is a former walk-on. How do they figure out the run game in September?
Well, that's a great question.
And Terrence West, too. I forgot Terrence West.
And that's what I was going to say. Terrence West is a guy that has been in the league. He's carried the football quite a bit. So he might be the answer those first 4 games to spelling Alvin Kamara. But make no mistake about this, Andrew. They're going to see how much Alvin can handle. You know, and really, it's not about the carries. I can see Alvin getting 15 carries and another, 10 catches to equal 25 touches. That's all you need from Alvin Kamara. You give him 25 touches a game. You get Terrence West and Shane Vereen to spell him for the first 4 games until Mark comes back, and then you're going to be just fine.
Kamara led the league in yards per carry last year in 6.1, but again, never had more than 12 carries in any game. And Mark Ingram is one of 4 guys to have 1,000 yards in each of the last 2 seasons. The others, Shady, Le'Veon Bell, and Jordan Howard. So it is some elite company, and they are certainly going to miss him. Now, if there is any solace here, and I know that looking at strength of schedule gets laughed at, and for good reason, because once the season begins last year, it does not mean a thing. But the Saints' schedule early on sets up reasonably well. They get Tampa and Cleveland at home to start the year, then at Atlanta, and then the Giants. Now, the Giants we expect to be much better, but judging on record, they had only 3 wins. The Saints have the easiest September schedule in the NFL.
On paper, they do. But I do believe Cleveland would be much improved.
And the Giants.
They only can go up. You know, they didn't win the game last year. They made a lot of offseason, you know, acquisitions, bringing in Tyrod Taylor and Jarvis Landry, and so they will be improved. Tampa Bay is an interesting thing, you know, interesting team to me, because who knows with the suspension, you know, of Jameis, who knows what they're going to look like those first 4 games. But New York, make no mistake about it, New York will be much improved. They're going to be a team to be reckoned with in that division. So if the Saints can get out of there those first 4 games, 2-2, 3-1, I think it's a win for them without Mark Ingram.
You saw number 10 there, Tre'Quan Smith, the rookie third-round receiver. We're going to talk a lot more about him coming up today, as well as you see Drew Brees slinging to Michael Thomas live on NFL Network. It's Inside Training Camp Live, and there's no better place to be today than on the field here in Metairie, Louisiana. Hall of Famer LaDainian Tomlinson. I'm Andrew Siciliano. We're not only here with the Saints, but coming up as well on ITC, we are going to head to Miami and check in with the Dolphins as we cover all 32 teams for you today on the first full. We are in Metairie today, and that training camp spotlight is brought to you by Mitsubishi Motors. We are here with Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. In Metairie, an 11-5 team a year ago. We know what happened. They made the playoffs. They went to Minnesota. That thing happened at the end of the game. We won't talk much about that, or maybe we will. I don't know. You going to ask Drew about that when he gets on the set later?
I'm sure he's tired of talking about it, but I will ask him.
You will ask
just
him.
Because it was a big story, and have they gotten over it?
I'm not saying that.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, that is kind of an issue here, is how do you move past that? And listen, I don't want to linger, but you're the professional athlete, so I will ask you, how do you move past it when they say every season is a new season? Let's roll Bill Belichick cliches now. Is that actually legit?
It is.
It is.
Because you force yourself, as an athlete, you force yourself a lot of times to forget about the bad stuff. You know, that's just the way we're trained.
You have to.
And I remember, Andrew, with Marty Schottenheimer, when I first got with him, he would preach over and over, forget about the last play, forget about it, no matter if it's good or bad, forget about it, especially the bad ones. And so I guarantee you, they have forgotten about that play, even though it's going to be shown ad nauseum when you talk about last year's playoffs, and even probably going into this year when they recap on the season. It's going to be shown, but you have to forget about it. You have to force yourself to say, you know what, this is a brand new year, and guess what? I'm a brand new person. You know, this is not the same team. You hear that over and over. This is not the same team that's last year's team, but you have to force yourself to do that.
Yeah, I understand. And Marty was well-versed at it. He had heartbreak in 85 and 86 in the AFC Championship game as a head coach in Cleveland, and certainly had some bad days there, and a lot of good days with the Chargers, as we see Michael Thomas here in some one-on-ones. Man, that guy is
a beast.
Talented.
He is. And his progression so far has been off the charts. I mean, he's come in and produced right away. He's become Drew Brees' #1 wide receiver. And there's no questions about Michael Thomas. The other questions are about the guys next to him. Is Ted Ginn Jr. a true #2? Can he fulfill that role? Or Cameron Meredith, you know, who came in the offseason, will he emerge as the #2 guy? Who knows? But I certainly believe they desperately need somebody else on the opposite side of Michael Thomas.
It's why they took UCF wide receiver Tre'Quan Smith, who's wearing number 10, with a third-round pick. He made a nice catch at the end of practice yesterday. Wasn't thrown by Brees, who was the third team, but Brees ran down there to congratulate him. That's how practice ended. He could be that guy, or Ted Ginn, or Cam Meredith.
You never know about rookies.
You never know about rookies. Trayvon Durrell, the former LSU wide receiver, left practice yesterday with what is believed to be a broken arm, reportedly a broken arm, so he may not be that guy. But Drew Brees, either way, is going to push the tempo and put points on the board. We're live in Metairie on NFL Network. Inside Training Camp Live, brought to you by Mitsubishi Motors here on NFL Network, along with the Hall of Famer LaDainian Tomlinson. I'm Andrew Siciliano. We are excited here to be in Metairie, Louisiana today to show you some one-on-ones, to show you a full Saints practice here. As you see, Drew Brees throwing downfield. The soon-to-be Hall of Famer Drew Brees trying to take this team back to a Super Bowl, LT, an 11-5 team a year ago, and a team that is very poised to win again this year.
Yeah, and he hooked up with Michael Thomas a few plays ago, which was pretty good to see. I'm sure we're going to see that quite a bit this upcoming season.
Michael Thomas, Cam Meredith, the former Bear, coming back from an injury. He signed 2 as a free agent. You see 10, Traquan Smith, 80, Austin Carr, the former Northwestern wide receiver who started last year in New England before coming here as well. They got to figure out the backup quarterback. 12 is Tom Savage, and also they love 7, Taysom Hill, the former Packer.
Yeah, and Taysom, you know, which is interesting. He's a tough guy now.
This
is the guy that ran down on kickoffs and made some tackles. So there's a lot to like there. It's not just him running down on special teams and showing his toughness. The guy can play the quarterback position.
Absolutely. Green Bay did not want to let him out of the building last year as we see Drew Brees go deep and right over the head of Michael Thomas.
And this is what I like. Michael Thomas is going against Marshon Lattimore, ones-on-ones, and that's what we love to see. As you're looking at it here, they went deep. Marshon Lattimore with great coverage right there on Michael Thomas.
This is why we love training camp. We got the best in the game. Michael Thomas, Marshon Lattimore. Inside Training Camp Live, brought to you by Mitsubishi Motors on NFL Network. There is no place I would rather be than in Davie, Florida with the Dolphins, or in Spartanburg, South Carolina with Cam Newton, the Panthers, or right here, which is where I find myself today with Hall of Famer LaDainian Tomlinson. Metairie, Louisiana, the bottom of your screen. Option 3 if you're clicking at home on your remote control, and that would be the New Orleans Saints. Welcome to another hour of Inside Training Camp Live, brought to you once again by Mitsubishi Motors. I'm Andrew Siciliano. This is LaDainian Tomlinson. We are happy to be here with an 11-5 team, a team that was this close to making it last year to the NFC Championship game, and a team, LT, that Sean Payton is telling them to remember. Prove people right. Don't prove people wrong, because people do believe this team is that good.
Yeah, they're embracing the success role and expectations of what this team should be, and rightfully so. They have the veteran leadership that you want in any football team. A great mix of veteran leadership and young talent. And so, rightfully so, they should be one of the top 3-4 teams to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And I love it from Sean Payton. He's always been a guy that's been very confident about not only himself and his play calling, but also his teams and what they represent.
They were 11-5 a year ago, first in the NFC South, 4-2 against the division. Not to look ahead too far to the schedule, it's going to be a fascinating December, though. You and I were talking about this before. I mean, they get the Panthers, the Steelers, the Panthers to close the season. They don't face Carolina until almost Christmas, the week before Christmas. So these two teams that we expect to be powers in this division, Falcons, another team, certainly not to discount the Buccaneers, but they're not going to beat until December. Drew Brees is going to come to the set after practice. You get to go one-on-one with your former quarterback. Curious here, we were just talking off the air. Remember when Peyton Manning was retiring, and the only talk there was can Peyton win another one? Peyton, you got to win another one, man. You're going to Canton, but you got to win another one. One isn't good enough. Drew has that one Super Bowl. Does he need that second? Or are we going to start hearing people say Drew needs it just like Peyton needs it?
I don't think so, because, with Peyton, you had all the talent around him. You had the receivers. You had the defense. You had everything that you needed to make a Super Bowl run. There's been question marks year after year about, does Drew have that talent? Does he have the talent at the wide receiver position? Does he have the defense to help him, win another Super Bowl? And so, rightfully so, a lot of times the answer has been no, he doesn't. That wasn't the same case with Peyton. Peyton had that talent. He had the receivers. He had the defense. So, now it is.
You're
sure.
Right.
now it is.
Drew's getting up there.
He's getting up there. And so I think it's fair right now to say Drew is expected over the next couple of years, to win a championship, or at least go to another Super Bowl.
It was something I was thinking about a couple of days ago in Green Bay as well with Aaron Rodgers. Does Aaron have to win another one? And by the way, when I say have to, it's not as if Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees aren't going to one day join you, LT, in Canton. We know they both will. I think with Peyton, it was a little bit different because Peyton wanted to be in that conversation, and the media certainly wanted to put him there as well, about the greatest of all time. And to do that, people said you needed another one. But Drew's in that conversation as well. He's got it.
Right on. Yeah, he is. He's in a conversation of greatest of all time. And I think when it's all said and done, it will help his case to have another Super Bowl, you know, to be mentioned top 3 or 4 of all time if you have 2 Super Bowl rings. And then when you think about it, you think about that first Super Bowl championship. I mean, it wasn't like their team was super talented, you know, when you think about it. And so that was on Drew. I mean, he led that team basically. I don't want to say he did it all himself because that's not fair. But for the most part, he was the catalyst. He was the premier player on that team. And you mentioned Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron does have to win another one.
You do?
I absolutely.
Why?
Because Aaron is the best quarterback in the game. He's the most talented quarterback in the game. And he's been that way for years now. And so I think he has had the talent around him to win another Super Bowl. So I think it's very fair for Aaron for us to question, hey, Aaron needs to win another one. And I'm knowing Aaron like I know him, he feels the same way, trust me.
Need those pelts on the wall. They have the numbers, a lot of them. They have the talent, certainly. Aaron's a younger guy than Drew. Drew's not slowing down, however. And he does have talent around him here. Forget about Mark Ingram's suspension for the first month of the season. All right, let's get to the Jets here. Let's focus on them for a second. We'll be back with the Saints as they are on the practice field in pads for the 3rd straight day. More Inside Training Camp Live, brought to you by Mitsubishi Motors, Hall of Famer LaDainian Tomlinson. I'm Andrew Siciliano, and you are looking live right down the line of scrimmage at Saints Training Camp. This is in Metairie, Louisiana, everybody. Special teams in the spotlight. Yep. Mike Westhoff came out of retirement last year to join the Saints team midseason. Special teams guru that he is, LT.
He was my special teams coach with the Jets.
He's awesome.
Yeah, I love Mike. He's so great. And he just knows how to call special team games. He knows how to put the guys in the right positions. And I guarantee you, this will be one of the best special teams group in the National Football League. Mike Westhoff has been doing it for so many years, and there's nothing, Andrew, that he hasn't seen.
Well, he hasn't seen these new rules, LT. Let's talk about
I'm sure
those.
He's not happy about it.
Because in every camp that we have gone to, I mean, that is the question, is how do we adjust to the new kickoff rules? We're looking at punt here. But how do teams adjust to the new kickoff rules, where most special teams coaches will tell you they're kind of going to look like a punt?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting, the kickoff return. And to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure how it's going to work either.
It really comes down to coaching. Honestly, you're going to see special teams coaches separate themselves from the pack.
Yeah. So there's, there's a 10-yard, I guess. I don't know, what do you call it? No hit zone?
No hit zone, in essence. The 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. Right? And we're going to see this for the first time in the Hall of Fame game on Thursday with the Bears and the Ravens. No contact until that ball either A, hits the ground, or that ball hits the hands of a returner.
No group. You can't
wedges,
group up, wedge up, none of that.
Right. Forget about the 5, the 3, the 2. Like, everything is out. So, might have a lot of smaller guys, right? You might have a lot more space and a lot more lanes for these guys to run.
Absolutely, and that's why Sean Payton was talking about possibly having Alvin Kamara back there to return, because now it is a lot safer and you're going to have more lanes to run through. So why not have one of your more dynamic players returning?
The issue has always been, when you put a starter back on special teams, how many reps do you want?
It used to be, though.
How many hits do you want?
Yeah, but this kick return is going to look so different.
You're still going to get tackled.
Yeah, that's true. But
it was not flag football.
But it'll be more like a screenplay now, right? So there are lanes on the screenplay. If Alvin Kamara catches a screen, he's going to have lanes to run through. I see that as kind of the same situation as they're trying to find. There's the guy,
Alvin Kamara.
He's back there. Sean Payton talked about trying to find that returner, so who knows? It very well could be Alvin Kamara, as well as I expect Ted Ginn Jr. to be back there.
Ted Ginn's going to
get
a bite at that apple. Regardless of age, he's still a dynamic return man. Alvin Kamara is one of the 12 guys getting a rose, according to Sean Payton. Everyone's laughing in New Orleans here about Payton using the Bachelor analogy. He said, she's looking for a return man, right? And she's going to hand out 12 roses, and one of these return guys could be the Bachelor, could get the rose, and could actually win. He said there could be trips to Paris in here, and if you know what, none of these 12 are a winner. He's got to get 12 new guys in here until he finds a winner.
The winner is on your screen right now. Make no doubt. Well, make no doubt about it. If he's really in the running and he really has a chance to be the returner, I mean, it's going to be him. But you raised the question just a minute ago. Do you really want him taking extra hits, especially those first 4 games when you will not have Mark Ingram? So that's the question.
Boston Scott, the rookie running back, the 6th-round pick, could also be in the conversation. He may appear on your screen wearing number 30. He was a very good return man in college, only 1 year really as a full-time running back. And that's Austin Carr back returning punts, the former Northwestern wide receiver, talented pianist as well. He's good on the piano.
Wow.
Started last season in New England, eventually ended up here with Sean Payton, who we see on the screen, and his Saints as well.
He's right in the mix. Sean wants to see it all.
And he is one of those coaches, Sean Payton, that doesn't just focus on the offense in practice. He's going to go position to position, group to group. He wants his hands in everything.
And I think that's a great way to kind of build that relationship with all of your players. You know, if he was a guy that's just staying on the offensive side of the ball, he might not have the best of relationships with a guy like Cam Jordan or, you know, Marshawn Lattimore. But the fact that he goes around to spend time with those guys and coach them, you build that personal relationship with those guys that you can go to when it's crunch time during the game and say, hey, Cam, let's go, baby, I need you to go.
And I think also, LT, it speaks to how comfortable he is with his staff, whether it's Pete Carmichael as the OC, whether it's Dennis Allen, who has got a decent tenure here now. We've had a revolving door over the years for DCs, but Dennis Allen at DC, Aaron Glenn, who we saw earlier coaching the defensive backs. Aaron Glenn actually ran practice on Friday, kind of head coach for the day, so he's comfortable with his lieutenants.
Absolutely, and that's very important. You have to build a rapport with your assistant coaches. I mean, because you, at the end of the day, you have to be able to sit in that meeting room and rely on their opinion. And that's what they do, especially during training camp. Hey, how's the running back group doing right now? Well, coach, I don't know. The guys are kind of tired. You know, maybe we ought to give them a break or whatever it might be. Sean can trust those guys to say, okay, we're going to ease up off a couple of periods and do things a little bit differently. But that speaks to your point. You have to be able to trust your coaches.
We're going to talk defense a little bit later as well. You see number 92, Marcus Davenport, the rookie out of UTSA, Texas San Antonio, the 1st-round pick who has amazing speed. They traded a future 1 to get him. He has shown that speed. He has yet to really show the muscle that they need him to have. He'll go one-on-one with Dad a little bit later from Davie. And we're back here as well in Metairie with the Saints on the practice field. Inside Training Camp Live. Where else would you rather be on a Monday? Inside Training Camp Live, brought to you by Mitsubishi Motors. One of the best things about Inside Training Camp Live is we take you on the field, and that's what we're doing now. We're taking you on the field with the New Orleans Saints. 7-on-7 here. The quarterback there is wearing 7. Taysom Hill, who actually played some special teams a year ago, former BYU quarterback, was with the Packers. They couldn't get him through waivers, and now he is here for a 2nd season in New Orleans. Hall of Famer LaDainian Tomlinson with me. I'm Andrew Siciliano here as well as we see Taysom Hill fire and have that ball go in and out of the hands of Keith Kirkwood, a rookie free agent out of Temple. Sorry, Keith, that was on the TV. All right, LT, let's talk about the defense here. All right, the defense was middle of the pack last year under Dennis Allen. They say that middle of the pack isn't good enough, but with Drew Brees in this offense, it might be.
Yeah, it could be, and especially when you have an offense that can control the time of possession, which they do because they run the ball so well now. They can control the time of possession and keep their defense off the field. You know, I think the bigger question marks is inside. You know, I want to see can they get some defensive tackles that can produce for them inside. I look at a guy like Sheldon Rankins, who, you know, to me is more of an inside guy, but he plays defensive end, as you see right here on your screen. But he's a former first-round pick. So is he going to step up and start to really mature and become the player that they need him to be? And then on the back end, we're not really worried, at least I'm not worried about the cornerback position. I think it's the safety position that we got to take a look at and see if they have what it takes. I know they brought in Kurt Coleman, you know, to go along with Von Bell and Marcus Williams. They need that veteran experience in Kurt Coleman back there to help this defense, you know, become just a little bit better. I'm not saying they need to be top 10, Andrew. They just need to be a little bit better.
Let's show you. Let's tell people what they saw there. That was Craig Robertson, the linebacker, LT, picking off J.T. Barrett. Yeah. Buckeye fans, that was J.T. Barrett there in the quarterback room for the Saints. Great stuff, guys. And seriously, I was joking, Stover. It's not really punishment, man. It's part of the co-host jab, as a former co-host once said. Coming up, more with the Saints. We're live in Metairie with Breeze and Thomas, and your 11-5 New Orleans Saints. Inside Training Camp Live, brought to you by Mitsubishi Motors on NFL Network. You are looking at Metairie, Louisiana. About a half hour left in Saints practice today. Their third consecutive day in pads before a much-deserved and needed day off tomorrow. Along with Hall of Famer LaDainian Tomlinson, I'm Andrew Siciliano. After practice ends, we're expected here to be joined on the set by the coach, Sean Payton, the quarterback, Drew Brees. Also, we got Cam Jordan, we got Alvin Kamara, we got a cast of thousands, LT, maybe even Michael Thomas. By the way, the real feel with the humidity right now is, you want to guess? You want to guess? Do you know already?
About 95.
101 degrees.
Oh, I'm selling myself short.
Yeah? Is that a short joke about me?
No. Sort of. No, I'm just kidding.
We got some dark clouds. You may not be able to see them here as we show you quarterback Taysom Hill working some 7-on-7s, but there are some dark clouds in the horizon. We do think the Saints are going to be able to get through this session before some bad weather rolls in. That bad weather not expected until noon local, maybe some lightning a little bit later, so they should get that full session in. Taysom Hill's an intriguing guy. We mentioned earlier there's, I think, Marshawn Lattimore, number 23, with a pass broken up. The Saints, LT, the first team since the 60s to have the defensive rookie of the year in Lattimore and the offensive rookie of the year in Alvin Kamara. Pretty impressive. What a great job Mickey Loomis, Jeff Ireland did putting last year's draft class, really the last couple, together. And
if you think about it, possibly the greatest draft class ever for one team. I mean, they're going to be, without question, in the top 5 of best drafts of all time.
Ray Lewis, Jonathan Ogden on line 1. But yes, you have absolutely. A point.
Yes. And so, you know, yeah, Mickey has been doing a really good job, as you mentioned, the last couple of years. But when you hit on a guy from both sides of the ball, a runner and then a corner, I mean, that's really doing an exceptional job of scouting.
Yeah, amazing job of scouting, and they think they could get that as well with Marcus Davenport this year, who was their first pick, and Traquan Smith, who was a third-round pick. More from the Saints straight ahead. On Metairie, Louisiana, for another hour of football with the Hall of Famer LaDainian Tomlinson. I'm Andrew Siciliano. If you're just joining us, it is now raining, like raining hard here. A Louisiana downpour. Yes, because no one cares about the weather, but LT and I were talking about the heat before, and the heat index was about 20 minutes ago, 101. But LT, as you know, from the south, from living in humidity, that heat's got to break eventually. It rains and it cools off. This is it breaking. They are still on the field, and it is pouring.
Yes, it is. And you got to be prepared for anything, Andrew. And the Saints are. They play in the NFC South. And you never know what type of weather you're going to get, even though Atlanta is indoors. But, yeah, this is what we got. We went from 101 to now, I think it's about 85.
I like it. The breeze is actually awesome now. I don't know if you could see this. Can you see? No, it's not. So we have a leaking tent here just a little bit. This is actually awesome. As long as there's no lightning, I don't care. The Saints are on the field for about 25 more minutes. But we want to show you how nice it was earlier. All right, so this is the Saints on the field earlier. They started inside for a walkthrough, then they came outside, and the sun was shining on Drew Brees as it did for most of last year at 11-5.
Yes, it did. It was beautiful, and you see Drew Brees here just putting in work, just another day at the office. He's always on time. He's always doing the right thing. Drew Brees, as cool as the other side of the pillow.
As any side of the pillow. By the way, Vin Scully's line. Vin Scully's classic line. For those who use it, let's tip the cap to the greatest baseball broadcaster of all time, the great Vin Scully. And again, Drew Brees here, who is set to join us, weather, if it holds up, on the set here after practice with his other quarterbacks, Taysom Hill and Tom Savage. And number 5 is J.T. Barrett. The Saints trying to put the Minnesota Miracle behind them in their second consecutive training camp here in New Orleans. The schedule in September without Mark Ingram is right now on paper the easiest of any NFL team, but that is based on records from last year. Once they step on the field, week number 1, you kind of have to throw that away. But this is a team that is primed, LT, and I don't think we could say it enough because it's the only thing I heard when walking around the French Quarter last night. Don't worry, I was calm and I was professional. I went to bed early, but it was, is this team heading to the Super Bowl?
I think they have a great chance to go to the Super Bowl. And listen, they were so close last year, and as you mentioned, the Minnesota Miracle, you know, that happens, but who knows what's going to happen in that championship game? They very well could have won that game and went to the Super Bowl. So, you know, I just think this is a team that has all the pieces. They have added a young stud on the defensive side of the ball in Marcus Davenport. Listen, I watched this kid in college. He can rush the passer now. If Dennis Allen can get this kid going and put him in position to make some plays, along with Cam Jordan, who is a, you know, an all-star, all-pro player, I think they're going to be just fine because, as we always say, you know, the front end helps the back end, and they already got a pretty good back end.
They do. With a very talented secondary, Marshawn Lattimore, the defensive rookie of the year, the corner out of Ohio State, a first-round pick in 2017. Saw him break a pass up just moments ago behind us here, getting ready for 2018. Let's get to Davie, Florida. It's raining here, but I believe Mike Silver joins us from under a roof. Third straight day of padded practice, however, for the Saints. You're looking live now on about 10 minutes left in today's Saints session. LaDainian Tomlinson and yours truly here next to the field in Metairie, Louisiana. The rain has gone away, it seems. The temperature has cooled down by about 10, 12, maybe even more degrees. So there's a nice little breeze going after the rain, which is certainly something all these players, Drew Brees, no pun intended, can certainly welcome. There is a tent over to the side. We don't have it on the camera right now, on the screen right now, but there's a cooling tent here. So, for example, when the special teams are on the field, we can have the offense, the defense, guys not needed on special teams in that cooling tent to try to hydrate, to try to cool down a little bit to fight the temperatures here, which did with the heat index right before the rain came down, hit 101 in Metairie. Let's talk about mental. I'm sorry, LT, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what do you think he and Tom Savage is talking about right now? Think he's giving Tom some little tips about what he should do during practice, what he should have did?
Is that what you would do with,
absolutely,
with younger guys?
Absolutely. You're over there talking about maybe some plays that you like, maybe that you didn't like, things that happened throughout the practice. And I'm sure, knowing Drew like I know him, he's probably asking Tom, hey, what did you see on the one play, you know, when we had X, Y, and Z called, and I thought the X was open, but maybe I should have went to the Y. I'm sure that's what they're talking about.
Real quick, as the camera moves and repositions, do you think that Tom Savage can be that guy? Can they rely on Tom Savage in case of emergency?
Yeah. Well, you know, what you say is your backup quarterback needs to be able to give you 3 or 4 games. And I would hope Tom has been in the league long enough that he can provide 3 or 4 games for you and go 2-2. That's all you ask of a backup quarterback.
Keep us treading water.
Absolutely.
J.T. Barrett, Taysom Hill, the other quarterbacks in the room here with one, Drew Brees. All right, practice we think is done for the day. Coming up, Drew Brees expected here. Sean Payton expected here. Cam Jordan expected here. Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, pick a Saint. We're going to just point at the roster, and they're going to be here. Inside Training Camp Live. sliding across the mat.
Working on tackling drills right
Tackling drills in the rain here, LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yeah.
Little kids at home might just think you're playing Superman as well. I mean, that's part of the job.
Well, this is the fun stuff right here, Andrew. When it rains in practice and you get to do stuff like this, takes you back to when you were a kid. Remember the slippery slide, I think it was? Slip and slide. Yeah, I used to have one of those as a kid. That's what that reminds me of.
Well, they are slipping and sliding and hopefully staying safe out there because as you can see, LT, I'm Andrew Siciliano. This is live in Metairie. Here comes the rain again. I'm not going to sing. We had a downpour for about 10 minutes and went away for about 5. And then the heavens have opened up yet again.
And they're working on special teams because I see Taysom Hill over there working on special teams.
We don't see
see it on your screen.
On the screen, but on the far side of the field, we got some special teams tackling drills, and Taysom Hill, the second or maybe third team quarterback, is out there doing those. And then you hear the horn sound. They might be going in or not. Not sure if Sean Payton's going to call this early because, I mean, this is a downpour. But, you know, it builds character, LT.
It does. It makes your team mentally tough for any weather because they're going to have to play in this weather sometimes. And so you want to have your team prepared to be able to play in this type of weather, especially your quarterbacks. Quarterback center exchange, they got to be able to handle the snap in this type of weather.
So as a coach, you might actually welcome this.
Most coaches do, absolutely. And we always talk about Bill Belichick. In fact, on their first day, it rained at Patriots camp. Did they go in? Absolutely not. Bill Belichick will have his group out there working in the rain, as well as what we see right now with Sean Payton. He has his team out here working in the rain because they're going to have to work through stuff like this.
What are the worst conditions you ever practiced under?
Snowing when I was with the Jets.
Yeah?
Cold, snow. You know, the rain really doesn't bother me as much.
It actually cools you down a little bit.
It cools you down, but the only thing that, for me, I had to do was take off my visor because I couldn't see in the rain through that visor.
Is that kind of like Sylvester Stallone and Over the Top, where when you turn your hat around, you become a different person? When you take the visor off, LaDainian becomes a different person?
No, I'm the same person. Yeah. You know, it's the same me. I still torch defenses, whether I had the visor on or whether I did it.
I love you, man. No, I'm still going to burn you because you're going to see my eyes.
Exactly.
When I burn you. All right, Saints practice here. Metairie, Louisiana, they're still out there working in the rain. There's quarterback Drew Brees. We got the ones out there. Mark Ingram, number 22 as well. So this is the first team getting in work in the rain.
Oh, yeah.
Not every game is going to be in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Look at week.
Oh, this is fun. Look at this.
You could have a road game, say in Tampa, where we are prone to have these downpours in September.
Yep, and you see ones-on-ones here. This is where, you know, you get the best action, Andrew, because you got good on good. You see Marshawn Lattimore right there taking away the inside. And nice completion there.
Austin Carr, the wide receiver, with that completion there. As you're watching Saints practice, we take you onto the field here in Metairie as the rain comes down. Ones-on-ones near the end of practice. The rain went away for a while. And last year had Drew Brees.
All right, let's go.
We're back on Inside Training Camp Live, presented by Mitsubishi Motors. Andrew Siciliano and LaDainian Tomlinson out there in Metairie, Louisiana. This is Patrick Claybon in the NFL Network newsroom. The reason you are hearing my voice is the rain that you see there on the screen in Metairie. Coming down profusely, our guys are connected to all kinds of electrical equipment and large towers and wires. So it's for the best that they are not in that right now. But we can check in and look at, I believe that's Tom Savage and company there on the Saints offense, getting some reps in. Taysom Hill, excuse me. Tom Savage, a recent acquisition for the Saints there. We've seen the ones taking on the ones in Metairie for an extended period today. But let's leave Metairie. Let's get to a place where, because we know Drew Brees is going to be the quarterback in New Orleans and everything is shored up there. But Kim Jones is...
All right, so it was really coming down. Thank you, Patrick Claybon, back at our studios in L.A. It was a downpour, LaDainian Tomlinson, and now we are back in Metairie. Practice has broken for the day. I'm Andrew Siciliano. We expect Sean Payton here in a minute, assuming he wants to walk through the rain, but it was pouring, dude.
Yes, it was, and you know, I think they got some good work done in the rain. I'm sure Sean Payton has to be happy with the outcome of practice, even though it rained really hard here. But as we talked about earlier, they're going to have to play in this type of weather, and you might as well get used to it right now.
Yeah, whether it's the quarterback-center exchange, whether it's wide receivers holding on to passes. We saw just as the deluge began, Austin Carr, second-year wide receiver, drop a football here. That's LaDainian, Hall of Famer. I'm merely Andrew, and we try to stay dry here under this tent. How hard really was it raining? Look, it's just rain, but you see it coming down on the path, and then I tried to zoom in.
Nice shot.
They were running there. They were jogging.
Yeah.
Nice getting shot. In some cardio at the end of practice, just running in the rain.
I'll tell you, and this is something that the offensive linemen and D linemen, they hate the end of practice when you have to do conditioning, because they figure, why are we doing conditioning? We just practiced 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Why do we need to do conditioning? But, you know, it's something that's necessary. Usually at the beginning of training camp, conditioning is always a part of practice at the end. And so you got to get it in. Rain, sleet. I'm sure you won't see any snow.
No, I highly doubt it. Do you have a Drew Brees autograph, by the way? Quarterback set to join us a little bit later.
I do not.
You don't?
But I will get one when he goes into the Hall of Fame.
I figured that is when he joins you in the Hall of Fame. You don't have like a wall inside of all your autographs?
I don't.
Good to see you.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Coach is joining us here.
You heard the voice there, the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, Sean Payton, who now joins us live on set.
Anniversary Hall of Fame. First or second year anniversary for you, 1 or 2?
It'll be
year 1.
Man,
yeah.
You do anything
First
special? Like,
I'm going to do something special when I get there, because Ray Lewis is going in and Randy, you know, so I'm going to do something special at their party.
It's good to have Sean Payton here, head coach of the Saints, after a very wet practice in Metairie, third consecutive day in pads. Are you soaked, dude?
pretty much. Generally when it rains here, it comes with thunder and lightning, and we go inside, obviously. So we don't get many opportunities where, you know, you're working wet ball. A lot of what you do changes, and once a season, you find yourself in a half of football like this. You know, down in Tampa, at Carolina, I can remember games, and, you know, here in a couple days, we had a wet ball drill scheduled, and we just got it early today, but it doesn't happen often when it's not with lightning or thunder.
How'd your team respond?
I thought defensively we were good. Offensively, we had mistakes that just started compounding, and all of a sudden one period bled to another. So, you know, half those guys feel pretty good about the practice, and then the other half, you know, they'll look at the tape.
Which is typical of
It's pretty
training
typical
camp.
of training camp.
Do you change your approach at all each and every day? Like going into today, do you say, you know what, I want to focus on this group, or, you know, maybe I need to work more with this group?
One thing we'll try to do is the night before when we meet as a staff, you know, I don't like just establish lineups and depth charts, so we'll try to rotate maybe a couple different receivers with that first group just so they get work with Drew. The same way on defense, and this is the time where we have the reps to do that. Today was the first day for us working on third down, so there was a lot of third down, 3rd and 2 to 3, 4 to 6. In fact, the last period was exclusively third down, and we'll repeat that again on Wednesday when they come back.
Is that number 2 position at the wide receiver position open? You know, we know Michael Thomas he's a stud, he's the guy. But I noticed Ted is in there, but you had some additional guys, Cameron Murray.
Well, in each one, our history here, we played with 4 guys, possibly even 5, and we'll rotate big groups in, we'll rotate speed groups in. There's a vision we have with each of those players. There's some younger guys right now. Cam Meredith, who we acquired from the Bears, is healthy and doing a good job coming off of ACL rehab. Traquan Smith, who we drafted this year, those guys specifically you're wanting to see early growth from, and then we've got 3 or 4 more guys that that we think can factor in, and I think the games will end up giving them a chance to.
Sean, for most coaches, the attitude, the motivation is, hey, no one thinks you're any good, right? Go out and prove that what they say is wrong. You're a little different this year. You're telling your team, with all the hype, with the team you had last year, with people talking Super Bowl in New Orleans, to prove them right.
I love
That's different.
Well, look, you can each year you're going into a season. Every team has hope right now. They have hope in the spring. The draft comes. Their fan base is excited because we truly are one of the sports where you can make that leap very quickly with a good draft class. Last year, we drafted 5 players that ended up starting for us, and very quickly we went from being a 7-9 team to a team that turned it around. Our salary cap provides that balance, and I think every one of these guys has to understand, and especially the team leaders have to understand that, man, this is a process where you don't turn the page here from last year. You go back. Remember that game, Chutes and Ladders? And when you hit a chute and you came all the way, that's where we're at right now, right at the beginning with the dice. And we haven't even taken our first turn again. We're looking back at the full board. You got to go 5 rows to get back up.
Man, you went Chutes and Ladders and you went Bachelor yesterday. I mean, you're going deep. You went Bachelor to find a kick returner, and Alvin Kamara may get a rose.
Listen, I got one right here. I mean, this guy, hey, he can return some kicks. No one ever asked him to. There's nothing that says he couldn't. But that's what that's what the 90-man roster and the competition, hopefully we can find that player.
Yeah, first-round pick, Marcus Davenport. Now, you guys moved up to get him. What have you seen in him, and what did you see in him that you guys felt like you needed to move up and grab him?
Well, we knew we weren't going to get him where we were picking in the latter part of the first round. We really liked his size, his length. He's prototype, and there's a physical nature to how we felt he played. And when they played up in competition, you saw his game go up. Now he's working more from a three-point. In college, there was a lot of two-point stance, stand-up technique. I think Ryan Nielsen, our defensive line coach, and Brian Young that's working with him in his pass rush, we like this player. We like his size measurables, but we also like the physicality he plays, and we just know that position's always at a premium in our league, and it's hard to find in the offseason.
Let's go back to Kamara. Whether it's returning kicks or running the football, how much can you lean on him in September? How many carries is too many carries?
Well, I think this. I really liked his role a year ago. I mean, his role was expansive, whether it was out of the backfield in the running game, or in the passing game, or really in the I formation in the running game. We'll use a lot of two-back offense. We still believe in a fullback. One of the things I would say with Alvin that was a little surprising, we had a vision when we drafted him, and I would say he kind of surprised us and everyone with some of the things he did between the tackles. You know, he was a better runner than maybe we had expected. So I want to be mindful of his role, understanding the length of the season, and I think really the onus falls on the next back, and there's a group of them that are competing for those touches while Mark's out. And you know, we haven't had any preseason games yet, but there's 3-4 guys that are out here that'll be competing for that role. And I think that's important because I don't think changing Kamara's role would be the wrong approach.
I think it's interesting as we talk about your number 2 quarterback. We know what Drew Brees is and what he's going to do for you. But I think finding a number 2 is very important.
Yep.
And you got a couple of guys, Tom Savage and obviously Taysom Hill. How do you see that second quarterback role taking form?
It's a good question. I mean, and they're 2 different players. So we're going to have a chance in this preseason when Drew's reps are finished to look at both of those players. Taysom's a young player we acquired last year on the waiver wire from Green Bay. He's extremely athletic. You know, he was a 4.42 at the combine. So this guy played in the kicking game last year, where Tom is a guy that can beat you from the pocket. He's experienced. So it's up to us in the preseason to give them stuff that they do well and then try to assess, hey, you know, how do they fit for our team this year? And look, there's that assumption always, you keep 2, maybe 3. I think we got to pay attention. If you get guys you like, I think you got to protect them.
Let's go back to Davenport here. He clearly has the speed. Obviously, you need a little more strength, and you wanted him. You traded that first-round pick to get that pass rush. The numbers last year for the defense, kind of middle of the pack, but middle of the pack with that offense can get it done. How much better do you need your defense to be this year under Dennis Allen?
Look, Andrew, I think 2 things. When we've had a lot of success here, that giveaway takeaway stat comes up, and that's going to be the case as long as we play this game with the current rules. So the takeaways are important. And then I think the one area we're working on is eliminating some of the explosives that we gave up a year ago. We did a lot of things well in turning it around. And Dennis and those guys, we started the season 0-2 and then went on the road to Carolina and then over to London to get a win. And then all of a sudden, won 8 in a row. I think the takeaways and then the situational defense, whether you're in the red zone or third down, those are the things that separate you. And then all of a sudden when the season's over with and you're trying to figure out how you won so many games, you're playing a complementary game offensively as well as defensively.
And your secondary is becoming one of the strengths of the team.
Yeah,
now.
I would
What
agree.
do you see from that safety position? Because you got some guys back there now. You brought in Kurt Coleman. You got some guys back there that are competing and that can play at a high level.
Well, the 2 players we've drafted, Vaughn Bell a few years ago and then Marcus Williams last year. He had a tremendous rookie year. He's got special ability. And then Kurt's someone we've just seen so much film on in the division. We played him 3 times last year, home and away and then in the playoff game. And when he became available, there's something about all the intangibles that he brings, both as a run player in the passing game and then also as a leader. So I think, they're packages where we're playing all 3 of those guys, but we do have versatility and those guys are working hard.
We've got about 90 seconds left. I'm not going to ask you about Minnesota because it's time to move on. I want to ask you how you moved on. Like, what did you do in the offseason to forget how that season ended and to focus on this one?
Well, look, there's nothing wrong with still having that taste in our mouth.
So you haven't moved on?
Well, listen, I don't know that you'll move on ever. In our careers, you just hope when it's all said and done, you're on the better half of some of those games than the bottom half of some of those games. And you typically, as a coach, remember the tough losses maybe more than you do the big wins. But
because it drives you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, fear of failure is a big motivating factor in what we do as a player and as a coach. Fear of not doing well. I mean, that's one of the things that I think is a healthy motivating factor. But more importantly, looking at the dynamic of that game, we didn't play well early on, and the last half of that game, certainly we came back. I point to the 3rd and 1, right before we kicked that field goal, we have a chance to get a yard and then take that clock down to 3 seconds, and that field goal is the last play of the game. There were a number of plays, but I think that taste is got a healthy spot for us to linger on it. And there's an old saying, it won't taste good, but it'll go down.
To prove them right potentially this year, the people that are saying this team is poised to make a run at the Super Bowl. Sean Payton, will you please go get some dry clothes?
Man, they say not to stay in these too long. These lights feel kind of warm.
Thanks,
Especially
Coach.
after the heat earlier. Sean, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Sean Payton, head coach of the Saints here after a wet practice in Metairie. Granted, the heat index before that was 101. So, you know what? The slip and slide and these tackling drills probably felt good after they got coated with rain. 3 days of pads, a day off coming up tomorrow for the Saints. More guests on the set. Breeze, Kamara, Thomas, straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. And Inside Training Camp Live. Presented to you by Mitsubishi Motors. Thanks so much for joining us here at 1 o'clock in the East and noon in Metairie, Louisiana. I said whether it be. Weather actually was the issue here today. That's LaDainian Tomlinson. I'm Andrew Siciliano. It started LT hot. Yep. Like we got the heat index up to 101. Then the heavens opened up. I mean, like biblical rain. And Sean Payton kept his team out there. And then he was gracious enough to sit down with us afterwards, soaking wet. It's been the third consecutive day in pads for this Saints team, trying to build off an 11-5 a year ago. What are your impressions of what we saw out there today?
Can we say fun and interesting day so far?
It was.
You know,
It's a lot of fun.
But I'll tell you what, I think Sean said it best. Defense ruled the day today. Defense looked really good. They were flying around. And